that's when it kind of hit me. I'm all of a sudden in this procession, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord, I'm in the Sistine Chapel, and I'm going to be here with only 116 other guys, and this is a big thing, Dolan. This is a big thing, and it kind of hit me. I remember the buddy next to me was the Cardinal Archbishop of Florence, Giuseppe Bettore, good guy. We're good friends. He's from Florence, so we're sitting there, and in the time that you're waiting for the ballots, you kind of might. It's kind of silent, but I would every once in a while say, Giuseppe, this is beautiful for me in the Sistine Chapel. We're here by ourselves, and I'm looking at these walls of Michelangelo, and I'm looking at the countryside and the vineyards and the mountains. And he said, big deal. He said, I just look out my dining room window in Florence for that. I didn't have to come to the Sistine. He was Archbishop of Florence. Anyway, and then, some bridge games will break out while you're waiting. No, so I don't know, Rob, the speculation if the conclave went longer. The rules for the election of the Pope are very specific. Like after 3 days, if there's nobody, you kind of have a day of recollection. After a certain amount of time, you can go from 2/3 to a majority. I forget the arithmetic of all that stuff. I'd have to be briefed on it. But as I would, hopefully with dutifulness before I would go in. But it's something very unique. You're unaware of the crowd. When you walk in, there's the old-fashioned potbelly stove there for the burning. You're kind of saying, oh, and you see 2 boxes because they're the flares that are put in with the burnt ballots. And of course, there's a big stack that says Natty, black flares, 1 flare, Bianco, because that's all you need.
Right.
So you're thinking, well, I wonder when we'll go to that one.
So let's go to the white. What's the reaction in the room when somebody has been elevated to Pope?
You kind of, it's coming because you can see the toll. And you kind of, when you go in fact, I don't, do I have it here, Joe? That from last time? Is that over in the office there? You want to get it? So you get the list of the cardinals, and you're keeping track. Mm-hmm. As the names are called out, you're watching because you know the magic number. And so when the candidate would reach that, of course, there would be applause, and the candidate would cry. And then they ask him if he accepts, and he says, Acipio, and what name do you want? And he tells us, and then he goes in and changes to the white cassock and comes out. We all go up for congratulations. Pope Francis, with characteristic thoughtfulness, said, this is interesting. As soon as he was elected and went back to change, he said, Devo telefonare Papa Benedetto. I need to call Pope Benedict and tell him how courteous. And he came back out and said, Ma, le linee sono caduti. Because everything's a blackout. Right. He couldn't call out.
Right.
So, when I went into the conclave in the Dome of Santa Marta, they confiscate your cell phones and computers. They search your luggage. It's very strict. Poor Father Jim Cruz, you remember him, my secretary. I had this big bag because I'm thinking, I don't know how long. I better get socks in there and peanut butter. He's helpfully kind of goes with me to carry the bag into Dome of Santa Marta when 2 Swiss Guard spears come out. No, only the cardinals go in. And then when I got to my room, which are far from luxurious, I say, oh, I'm going to, you know how in Italy they have the wooden slats, So I go and I said, so I went out to the hall and said to one of the porters, I said, my shades aren't working. I can't get up. He said, no, they're nailed shut. Mm. So you can't even communicate. Apparently in the old days, people would send Morse code with mirrors or something. Huh. You got the whole Vatican to yourself.
Yeah.
I love smoking a cigar walking through the Vatican's gardens. It was only I. So I don't know, where were we? I'm sorry to get. Did you see that, Joe? Bring that. Rob might be interested. So these are souvenirs from the last. See, the last. So these are what you have, the vota scrutiny.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so they would have so everybody would have one of these at their seat. Remember? and then you'd have all the names, and you'd kind of keep track. See, where was Bergoglio? Where was Bergoglio? I don't. He would be in here. He was a cardinal priest. So, and it's kind of named. And here's Dolan up here at 79, second place. No, it didn't say. Where is Cardinal? So here's Bergoglio here. See.
Well, so was it a shocker?
But every time after every vote, they would come take this, and that would be burned with the ballots. But this was the last one that we didn't need, so we got to keep it. So
was it a shocker? When
it's on eBay now, folks.
Retirement funds. Was it a shocker when he won?
No, because you could see it coming.
But going in,
it's not like these shifts.
No, but going in
from the beginning. Wow.
I don't think he was a favorite going in, was he?
He would have been favorite to the cardinals who had been in the conclave that elected Benedict. So I didn't know this, and Cardinal Egan was in that conclave, and he was very scrupulous. He never talked about it. Now you hear all over the place that he was the runner-up in 2005. I don't know that for a fact, and I never heard a brother cardinal say it, but apparently. And so I would think the people that would have been there before, the old-timers, the veterans, would have said, hey, he almost got it last time. Let's think about this again. He wasn't on I can remember hearing Cardinal Egan speak well of him, but he wasn't kind of on my radar. Obviously, at the first vote, when you see it, I said, boy, I ought to go. And I can remember meeting him in those meetings before, because I was, you kind of go around and say, hi, I'm Tim Dolan from New York, and where are you from? And I remember I felt a figure on my back, and I turned around, and he said, I'm Jorge Bergoglio from Buenos Aires. I said, oh, nice to meet you. I'm Tim Dolan from New York. He said, I know who you are, which I thought, how nice of him to kind of come up and introduce himself. So, but that's the first time I ever saw him. I do remember being very moved by his intervention at one of the congregations. I thought, this man speaks with simplicity and with a profundity about it. I can remember being very moved by what he said. So you kind of, that'd be one of the things. You can bet after the first, when we went back to lunch, I'm asking my brother cardinals, who's he?
Wow, such a great conversation there with Cardinal Dolan. Such good insight of what goes on in the conclave. Obviously, he will be part of that, and it's set to take place 15 to 20 days from now, where all of the cardinals who are under the age of 80 will gather inside the Vatican there at the Sistine Chapel. As he mentioned, he likes to have a cigar, but that's, that's Cardinal Dolan.
I'm sure it could get pretty intense in there during a conclave. It's always the smoke, that comes out of the little chimney there, is it black? And then you wait, and then it's white, and a new pope selected here. That's how that works. Usually black a couple times, and then they all come to the conclusion, and they say, okay, this is our next man up here. That's
because they need, it's an election, and they need 2/3 majority. So, there'll be a lot of discussions. We have to think that a lot of those discussions have already been, taking place with his failing health as of recent. But now it's going to be a period of mourning for the next 9 days. And then, as we know, they will gather for the conclave.